A lot of the consultancy and advisory companies are pivoting into AI, McKinsey in particular, because I think they realize that their time is up. Good morning, this is AI with Kyle. I'm going to be running through the daily AI news and updates, as well as taking live questions from the audience who are joining from TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter right now. Good morning, everybody, and I hope you've had an amazing week. And if you are stateside, I hope you've had a great Thanksgiving. And you're probably not watching this right now because you're in a turkey hangover, and I envy you. That sounds fantastic. So, not much news today because we had a busy week with Gemini. Google were just knocking it out of the park. We had Gemini through Nano Banana Pro, anti-gravity, updates to Notebook. Google dominated. At the beginning of this week, we had Claude 4.5. It's now gone quiet. It is Thanksgiving, and most American models are having a bit of time off. I imagine we get more releases in December with the 12 days of Shipmas. What I want to look at today are a couple of reports. We've got one, an MIT study finding AI can already replace 11.7% of the US workforce. We're going to look at why that is nonsense. And then we've got another one, which comes from McKinsey, which is being reported as AI agents and robots are ready to automate about 57% of work hours in the US. That one's more accurate, but still problematic. We're actually going to look at the reports. I'm going to give you links to those reports in the newsletter as well, because I had to track them down. They're a pain in the ass to get, honestly, and you have to sign up for them. So I'm just going to give you the PDFs directly in the newsletter. So make sure you signed up. You can do that on my website, AI with Kyle. I just want to look at headlines because headlines are used to grab our attention. That is exactly what they're for. We've had clickbait for a long time. We simplify, exaggerate, and make something sensational when generally it is not that exciting. So this is now an MIT headline about MIT study finds AI can already replace 11.7% of the US workforce. You read that and you assume, okay, wow, 1 in 10 people are going to be out of their jobs very shortly because of artificial intelligence. So there might be. They might actually be, but not because of this research. The way it's been reported is problematic, especially this headline. I've seen people discussing this saying MIT changed their mind because I think it was beginning of this year. There was another study from MIT NANDA, which was saying 95% of AI pilot projects fail. That was an incredibly flawed study. It wasn't even a study, it was a report. And that 95% was taken out of context to argue against artificial intelligence. Now we're seeing the same thing with this new headline. It's going to replace 11.7%, used to argue AI is very effective. They both come from MIT, so people are like, oh, MIT don't know what they're talking about. In both of these cases, the reports, nobody's reading them. They are just taking the headline figures and they're running with those figures without applying any critical faculty. So we're going to try and do better. We're going to look at these numbers because it is not what it seems. And I'm sorry, but statistics sometimes get in the way of what we want to be true. Here we go. MIT study finds AI can already replace 11.7% of the US workforce. This is the CNBC headline. This is incorrect. They either don't understand the study statistics, or Miss Mackenzie Sigalos is being willfully obtuse in order to get a headline that's going to get people to click on it and talk about it, which is what we're doing now. Very dishonest. Massachusetts Institute of Technology released a study that found artificial intelligence can already replace 11.7% of the labor market. No, they did not. The study was conducted using a labor simulation tool called the Iceberg Index, created by MIT. For lawmakers preparing billion-dollar reskilling and training investments, the index offers a detailed map of where disruption is forming down to the zip code. Okay, that's fine. It's that headline that we have problems with. It is not talking about 11% of the workforce. Massachusetts MIT on Wednesday released a study that found that artificial intelligence can already replace 11.7% of the US labor market. So they're being a bit more cautious there instead of saying the workforce, or as much as $1 trillion in wages across finance, healthcare, and professional services. Okay, first point, this is just finance, healthcare, and professional services. So it's not the whole workforce of the US. All right, we've already got a bit of a problem here. We're looking at a particular set of industries, not the entire economy. The study was conducted using a labor simulation tool called Iceberg Index. So you can actually find it. If you go to iceberg.mit.edu, you can find Project Iceberg. And you can find also the original paper, Iceberg Index, Measuring Skill-Centered Exposure in the AI Economy. Much less of an exciting headline because the reality is not as sensational as it's been made out to be. So what they do with the Iceberg project, which is really cool, is they basically simulate the US economy. So they have agents which act as humans working within this economy, and they see what happens if 13,741 agents up against each other and simulate what that would look like moving forward. So it's a simulation. This is not reality, but the methodology is fascinating. The US labor force is worth $9.4 trillion with 151 employees. That's very confusing, MIT. You can do better than that. They've built these 13,000 agents which compete against each other, they work with each other, and they simulate what the economy could look like. And they run multiple simulations, and then they see which of these simulations seems most accurate, they take averages, etc. I imagine, I need to dig into it, but I imagine 11.7% is their most dramatic. Now, the thing we need to talk about, this is wrong, it treats the 151 million workers as individual agents tagged with skills. No, it doesn't. They'd have 13,000 agents. My God, CNBC. I'm not a journalist, but I see the problems here. The big thing, and why we need to be careful, is they're not talking about 11.7% of the workforce. They're talking about skills. So they're talking about skill exposure. Every single job is made up of different skills and tasks we do on a daily basis. For me, for example, I sit down and talk to camera. That is one skill, that is one task that I do. Around that, there might be the fact that I set up my lighting and my sound equipment. That's a different skill and task. I could hire somebody to do that, but I do it myself. Around that, there's the fact that I am researching and finding these articles. There is posting on social media. I've got to do bookkeeping later. These are all different tasks, and most jobs consist of all these different components. Even if you are a doctor, you are not doctoring 100% of the time. You are also filling out paperwork, dealing with regulations, doing rota stuff. Like the other tasks around your core job exist in every single career. Artificial intelligence is reshaping the $9.4 trillion labor market with effects beyond the technology sectors. Yes. When AI automates quality control in automotive plants, consequences spread through logistics, networks, supply chains, and local services economy. This is the second, the third, the fourth order consequences of bringing artificial intelligence in. This is generally not what people think about. People think about what's it going to do to my job very specifically. You need to think both larger and smaller. What's this going to do to my company? What's this going to do to my industry? Not just, oh, is this going to take my Excel work away? But what does this mean if it takes all the Excel work away for all of my company? What does this mean if this takes away all of that Excel work for my whole industry? Suddenly, do we need 20% less people in the industry? That has downstream effects. We need to think about all the different layers. They're simulating these layers in a model. It's not one-to-one, using AI agents. So they say traditional workforce metrics cannot capture these ripple effects. They measure employment outcomes after disruption, not where AI capabilities overlap with human skills. Project Iceberg addresses this gap using large population models to simulate the human AI labor market, representing 151 million workers as autonomous agents executing 32,000 skills across 3,000 counties and interacting with thousands of AI tools. It introduces the Iceberg Index, a skill-centered metric that captures the wage value of skills AI systems can perform. The index captures technical exposure. AI can perform occupational tasks, not displacement outcomes or adoption timelines. They are specifically saying in their abstract, this is not about displacement. This is not about how many jobs are going to be displaced by AI. They're saying this is about technical exposure. So every single job will have all of these different tasks, all of these different skills that you do on a daily basis. 11.7% of those tasks and skills, on average, are going to be exposed. Very different. This is very different to 11.7% of the workforce can be replaced by AI. Analysis shows that visible AI adoption concentrated in computer and technology represents only the tip of the iceberg. Now, this is important. Technical capability extends far below the surface through cognitive automation spanning administrative, financial, and professional services. This exposure is larger and geographically distributed across all states rather than confined to coastal hubs. So this is the important part here. The use of AI is not only in computer stuff. It's not only in technical stuff. It's not only in code. That's where we're seeing a lot of it impacting. We're going to talk later about the jagged edge, and I'm going to talk about this graph and how AI progresses at different rates in different industries. What we think about it is, oh, it's coming for coders' jobs. It's coming for people who work with computers. What this report is showing is like, yes, it might hit there first and it might have a lot of impact there, but then there are going to be cascading consequences from that, which are going to affect the entire labor market. That's the bit we need to be worried about. Second, third, fourth order consequences. Technical capability extends far below the surface, not just computers, but administrative, financial, professional services. This exposure is fivefold larger than we expected, and traditional indicators such as GDP, income, and unemployment explain less than 5% of the skill-based variation, underscoring why we need new indices to capture exposure in the AI economy. Using our current static numbers, or what percentage are unemployed, what is our GDP, no longer is sufficient because AI has cascading effects. They're trying to build a new metric. I'm going to give you this report. I'm going to surface it so you don't have to go digging for it, so you can read about the Iceberg Index. But what I really want to emphasize is when you see a number like this from CNBC, MIT study finds AI can replace 11.7% of the US workforce. Don't just react to that and think, oh my God, 10% of jobs are gone. They are misunderstanding or they are lying. I don't know if they're doing this cynically because they want the clicks, or I don't know if they are just not very smart, but they have not looked at the paper. It's about technical exposure. So it means 11.7% of the tasks that people do on a daily basis might be exposed technically, rather than 11.7% of jobs. Subtle but important difference. We're going to talk about another one in a moment because McKinsey have also come out with a shocking report, which again is problematic. And it's also a very different number to what MIT is saying. And then I want to show you a book everyone should read called How to Lie with Statistics, because it's fantastic. First, I'm going to hop over to some questions. I'm paying $8,000 to the first 5 people to message me. You are going to get blocked by Benjamin. I don't think Benjamin is going to give you $8,000 if you talk to him. Espen says, get rid of the purple on your site. Way too common in vibe coded sites. Funnily enough, I've been using the purple since before vibe coding. In particular, this purple emoji in my email newsletters. I can definitely get rid of it in these gradients, 100%. But the purple, annoyingly, is a decision I made a couple of years ago before vibe coding. But no, I understand what you mean. Thank you for your feedback. I'm going to have a look at the next one, McKinsey. It's getting worse day by day. An increasing number of studies are reaching serious conclusions. This is Chubby. Chubby does good stuff. Most of the roles at risk, about 40%, involve drafting information and routine reasoning that AI agents can do. So this is pointing again to a headline. So this is a tweet pointing to a headline, which points to an article, a report. To get the report, you need to go. It's very hard to get. So the tweet points to the article. The article does not point to the original paper because they don't want you to actually bother reading it. So you have to find it yourself, which I could only do because they mentioned the name of it somewhere. And then you need to go on the website. And the paper is called Agents, Robots, and Us. They do not link to it, which is terrible journalism. And this is the Times. So come on. You need to sign up for a McKinsey account, give details, fill out a registration, and then finally you get the PDF. I've gone through all of that and got the PDF for you. I will put it in the newsletter so you can access it directly. Look at this. No nonsense. So you'll be able to get it in the newsletter tomorrow. So again, I've scanned this. I've gone through it. I have not read it in detail because I only downloaded it half an hour ago, but it's very similar to the MIT finding where we are seeing this being over-egged again. So we see AI will replace half of American jobs, but they're looking at skills and time usage within a job which is potentially exposed to artificial intelligence. So just because a percentage of your job is exposed and you can use AI with it, does not necessarily mean the job itself is at risk. In the same way that starting to go from paper records to doing stuff on Excel did not necessarily put the job at risk. It just made it a bit more efficient. That is not to say jobs are not at risk. I firmly believe they are. We're going to have a massive shake-up. We need to be careful of these headlines and influencers not reading the actual report. So again, I'm going to give you this report inside the newsletter so you can look at it. If you don't want to do the reading, all you generally need to do is read the abstract. This doesn't have an abstract because it's not a scientific paper, but the abstract and the introduction. That is generally sufficient to realize that the headline is a load of nonsense. The other thing you can do is you can take these papers, you can throw them into ChatGPT, you can throw them into Gemini, and you can say, hey, here is the PDF and the headline. The headline is AI could replace 40% of American jobs. Do these align? I did this with Gemini. I gave it the PDF. I said, AI could replace 40% of American jobs, says report, check for veracity. It said, based on the report, the claim AI could replace 40% of American jobs is incorrect and a misinterpretation. The report states it's not a forecast of job loss. Instead, it focuses on how tasks and skills change within a job. So it's the same as the MIT paper. If you don't want to read your way through, I think it's 60 pages or so. Yeah, 60 pages. You can always ask AI and get it to compare to the headline. If you want to increase your BS detection, I highly recommend How to Lie with Statistics. It goes through how statistics can be manipulated. It's a very easy read. It's also a tiny little book, but it will equip you with the critical tools to be able to look at these headlines and be like, what are you doing here? What are you up to? Because a lot of the time they are basically BSing us, because that's what sells papers. Hilariously, one of these articles is also written by AI. Oh, I've actually closed it, but one of these papers talking about the impact of AI on job loss was written by AI and then edited at the end, and it says it at the bottom, so it's ironic. I'm going to hop over to some questions. No questions this morning, just someone trying to scam people. Let's look at the jagged frontier. There's this idea in artificial intelligence. We're going to look at one of the founders of the idea, or one of the progenitors of it, in a moment. There's this idea of the jagged frontier. So we tend to think of AI advance as a monolith, whereas that's not really the case. This leads to blind spots because it's racing ahead in some tasks, whereas in others it gets stuck and people aren't seeing improvements. That's why when you talk to people, maybe you use AI daily and find it valuable. Sometimes you'll talk to people and they'll be like, I don't find it helpful. It doesn't help me in my job. I don't see the point. Some of that will be psychological blocks that they don't want to experiment with. Some will be genuine use cases where AI is not very good at yet. AI is very good at stuff we train it for, like coding. Because coding is such a highly valuable task, and because it's engineers working on this task, a lot of time, energy, and money has been put into making them very good at coding, at programming, especially models like Anthropic, which is basically, they've just made Claude extremely good at programming. So in that area, we see progress very quickly. Whereas there'll be other areas where we're not seeing as much progress. I'm just trying to think of some. Dealing with the world, the space, giving artificial intelligence the ability to interact and sense the world around it. That is a AI that has explored world models, but it hasn't been prioritized as much as large language models, at least not until recently. So what we tend to see is within a particular job, there will be some things that AI is really good at. And there are some things that it is not very good at. It's very good at helping you draft emails. Fantastic. It is not very good at going to a meeting and balancing the kind of emotions in the room and coming to a conclusion with your team and getting everyone on board. That is not a task that AI is very good at yet, because it doesn't have empathy, presence, and communication ability to bring people together. But these are part of a job. Jagged Alliance is about the video game. The Jagged Frontier is about different rates of improvement in your job. So we have this kind of period here. The AI is a fun toy period. We were there a couple of years ago, and there were only a few of us back then who realized, I'm talking about after ChatGPT 3 and 3.5, obviously there have been people in AI for years, but after the first big pushes of ChatGPT and DALL-E 2, if you remember that, the image model, there was something like, oh, this is a fun toy, but this is going to get better. I think this is going to be interesting in a few years. The majority of people thought it was a toy. We've been in that phase with image generation until recently. For the last couple of years, designers, illustrators, artists were able to look at AI and be like, it's rubbish, it's terrible. And they were right. So for a couple of years, AI image generation was crap. And we had things like Will Smith eating spaghetti, and it looked absolutely mad. However, it's got better and better and better. And you've seen the arguments from people who create art, people who create designs, graphics, illustration, go from AI's rubbish to, oh no, AI is quite good and can do what I do. I need to fall back onto other arguments. It's unethical. Stealing from artists uses huge amounts of electricity, or it will destroy jobs because there won't be any jobs for designers moving forward because AI will do the majority of the commercial work. So they fall back onto other arguments. And we see this again and again in different spheres. It's very visible in AI art. This Jagged Alliance, a guy called Thomas Pueo has put together this graphic you've probably seen. It's doing the rounds right now. AI starts as a fun toy. helping with tasks. This was a couple of years ago. The AI is a jagged frontier. Sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's dumb. Then the AI is unbelievably intelligent, but it fails at X. In this case, it's this little task here. Things that it can't do, things that it struggles with, stupid things like counting the R's in strawberry, counting the number of fingers on an emoji hand, filling a wine glass to the brim, although now Nano Banana does it. But increasingly, that space becomes smaller and smaller, the things that AI can't do. Eventually, the abilities of AI are surrounding what our job is. So this circle is our job and the tasks that we do. And once we hit this kind of AGI level, which is fuzzy, we don't necessarily have a good definition of that, then it won't matter. This jagged frontier will consume our entire jobs and tasks, so it doesn't matter from a practical point of view. You'll probably see this chart around. I will put this in the newsletter. I wanted to bring in Ethan Mollick's response. As one of the authors of the original Jagged Frontier paper, I think this undersells how jagged AI is and will be to the level of individual jobs. Having a couple of critical tasks that AI cannot do creates deep bottlenecks, especially as the shape of the frontier is unknown. So he's saying that once you have a bottleneck, that actually impacts the kind of other expansions. So let's say this is a bottleneck here, then this might actually decrease the ability for other areas, other tasks within your job to expand outside the frontier. He's saying it's not quite as simple. I will put all of this in because it's a very interesting discussion. And I think the jagged frontier is a really useful idea because it does explain an awful lot about why AI is really good at some things and really bad at other things, because you will have that debate when you talk about artificial intelligence. I was recently talking to a lawyer and he was going on about how it's terrible at certain things in his job. That is an example of a jagged frontier. People who don't like AI tend to hyperfixate on areas where AI is not good, use that to chip away and say all AI is useless. Or the disingenuous argument you see a lot is they will say it is not true AI. It's a large language model. By true AI, real AI, or they'll say it is not AI. That's because they are using the word AI to represent AGI, or strong artificial intelligence. It's an argumentative trick and it's a little bit disingenuous. It's also wrong. AI does exist. It is a field of study since the 1950s and an idea that's been around even longer than that. And ChatGPT is an AI. It is not AGI. It is not strong AI, but it is an AI. That's an argument you'll see popping up again and again. Not getting any questions today. Everyone's quiet on a Friday. Oh, here we go. King, what do you think of AI doing code? I think it's great. I think it's really good at coding. So there's a guy called Andy Wolf. Is he Andy Wolf? I've just made that up. That's not his name, is it? This is Adam Wolf. He posted the other day about Claude 4.5, basically saying coding's done. And this has been obviously a very controversial post. He does work for Anthropic, so we need to take it with a pinch of salt. But he said, as soon as the first half of next year, 2026, software engineering is done. Soon we won't bother to check generated code for the same reasons we don't check compiler output. I love programming, but it's a little scary to think it might not be part of my job, but coding was always the easy part. The hard part is the requirements, goal, feedback, figuring out what to build and whether it is working. The coding is the easy part. It's everything around it that's going to be more important. And increasingly the AIs are able to do the coding. Can they do it perfectly? No, but you can use AIs to check the coding as well. A year or so ago, the code wasn't good. As coding tools and AI augmented, the coding tools get better and the models get better, then we're seeing the same thing in software engineering where people are falling back and saying, oh, it can't do architecture and it can't do bug fixes and it can't do security. So they're falling back to the peripheries. This again is the jagged frontier. And because there's so many resources being put into making these models good at coding, especially at companies like Anthropic, the coding portion will be a solved problem in the next couple of years. And the hard part, as Adam Wolf is saying, is requirements, goals, feedback, figuring out what to build and whether it's working. Also building stuff that's worthwhile, valuable for end users, stuff you can sell. This is the hard part because anyone can build, anyone can code. How do you make sure you're building something that people actually want to buy, people want to use? So we're going to have to see entrepreneurs who can build using vibe coding, using coding, but also know what to build and how to sell it. That's the bigger problem. Absolutely rubbish at anything computer. What tools should I start with? If you want to learn vibe code, check out Lovable. I've got one there, stickers. It's a bit fuzzy. There we go. One there, stickers. Lovable, spelt like that. There are lots of other vibe coding tools. This is not sponsored. It's just I like theirs as a basic vibe coding tool. There's also BOLT, Base 44, Replit, V0. Personally, I'd go with Lovable. It's the most user-friendly. You can go in, give it an idea, and it will build it for you. It looks like ChatGPT. It's non-intimidating, and it deals with all the back-end stuff for you. So after a few months, you feel more confident to look at Cursor, Cursor. Cursor is fantastic. That's what I use most of the time. You can also look at Claude Code made by Anthropic. Start with Lovable and move up from there. I put together a guide on this. I put together guides on everything. Getting started with vibe coding. So this one, these are all free on my website. This is getting started with vibe coding your business. Yeah, so this one talks about vibe coding. And you can find it on AI with Kyle, getting started with vibe coding. So that's specifically for building products you want to sell. You can build stuff for yourself though. That's what I do. I have lots of tools in the back of this website, which are all vibe coded. So for example, when my newsletter goes up, I have tools that rip the newsletter into pieces, create articles based off the back of it and interlink to other articles, creates a glossary automatically, has links to other things in the issue. This is for search engine optimization, private to me and my website. Start with building tools for yourself, useful for your job and personal life, then move on to products. Sell jobs are not going to be very safe moving forward. How can we use AI agents to create blog posts to get websites ranked on Google? You have to be really careful. So Google, very smart people, lots of engineers, they will deprioritize AI generated content. It's a bit of an arms race though, because so much is AI generated right now. What I highly recommend is you start with human content. So what I'm doing right now, talking to you, allows me to generate a bunch of content for my newsletter and blog articles. I'm going to talk to you guys for an hour. This is all recorded. It all goes onto YouTube. Cool. Great. What we do is we grab the transcript from the live and turn it into a newsletter. This morning's newsletter, for example, it has all of the stories I covered. It has the embeds, the graphics, explaining what I talked about. This all gets generated. This then gets ripped up into smaller stories. So this is the newsletter that you can see. That's my final newsletter. I can then, in the background of my website, extract the stories from the newsletter. Oh, story validation failed. It broke because we're doing it live. I'm doing something else in the background, so I shouldn't be doing this right now. But this will extract all the stories from my newsletter, and it looks a bit like this. There we go. So it will pull the stories. I can then expand them out using artificial intelligence into full pages like this. So it creates a TLDR, it embeds my YouTube video, it expands the story using my words. Conclusion, key terms explained, what this means for you. That's great for SEO and it's working well. These rank extremely well. The key is it all started with me talking. If you just go into ChatGPT and say, hey, write an article about Lovable's tax drama and why their response was perfect, the thing you create is going to be AI. It won't have much personality. It will be detectable by Google, and they're not going to necessarily rank it. You start with the human, either dictating your basic thoughts or doing a live show like this and then taking the transcript, and then you combine that with artificial intelligence to create a page like this. I'm able to create about 10 of these pages per day, plus these AI news pages, plus video pages, all off the back of this one live. It does a lot of heavy lifting. I'll probably do a guide about it one day, although it is quite a lot of work. I don't recommend it. Roji says, Lovable, Cursor and what, please? Claude Code is probably the top one, but it's a little more technical to use, at least the setup. I'd recommend starting with Lovable. Why should you be bothered to read something nobody could be bothered to write? This is exactly my thought as well. If you just mass generate articles using ChatGPT, what's the point? What's the value for people there? There is no point. You need to add something of yourself. Otherwise, people could go and ask ChatGPT that question. Sure, you could probably rank some pages, but it's not a very long-term solution because Google eventually are going to work out how to detect, or they're going to deprioritize these stories because they need to protect their search monopoly, basically. So you need to inject a little bit of yourself. You need to inject something into it. You can use AI to assist and to augment your writing. If you generate writing and stick it on a blog using ChatGPT, I just don't think that's going to be One, it doesn't help the world, and two, it's not going to be successful. Google will deprioritize it. Lou Evans says, I do something similar. I have a document, gets uploaded to ChatGPT project that does this. Yeah, it's mixing your personal take with AI. You can use AI to shape drafts. I highly recommend you can talk to ChatGPT or Claude. You set up a project, you give it the format and the instructions for what kind of article you want to create. You do that in the project, so you can repeat it again and again. And every time you want a new blog article, you go into that project and say, time for a new blog article. This one is about Lovable and VAT, not paying VAT and what that means for them. Let's start with you interviewing me, and the project will interview you about your thoughts. It's okay, what do you think about Lovable's VAT? Did they respond well? Should companies that are US registered but working out of Europe, should they pay VAT? Blah, blah, blah. So it'll ask you all of these questions, and you are going to answer using your microphone as if it's interviewing you to get your personal opinion into the AI. And that's going to give it enough kind of unique material to actually put together something useful, instead of just going to AI and saying, write me an article about XYZ. That's not valuable. If you don't want to write, that would be the way to do it. Voice recording. ChatGPT 5.1 versus Claude versus Gemini's daily driver. Depends. I would try them all. For me, it is Claude, my daily driver. I have free access to Claude, and I'm on the $200 a month plan, which Anthropic gave to me, full disclosure. I don't have to deal with limits. If you find you're using Claude and you're hitting those limits, which apparently have been raised since 4.5 came out on Monday, that makes Claude less useful. My personal split is Anthropic for most things work. So coding, obviously, any kind of work projects where I need to brainstorm. Let's say I'm putting together a course. I do all my thinking and scaffolding in Claude. Then I use ChatGPT for personal stuff like travel, looking up video games, recipes. That's my personal artificial intelligence. Main reason being the persistent memory is really good in ChatGPT. So it knows already what I'm asking about. Whereas in Claude, I'm fine structuring a project because it's work. So I'm okay putting in additional context at the beginning, giving it the documentation, setting up projects, etc., knowing that I'm going to get a better result. Whereas in ChatGPT, I don't want to do all of that because it's mainly for personal projects. So for me, that's my split. GPT for personal and Claude for professional. I use Notebook LM and Nano Banana Pro in Gemini. So I pay for Gemini, but I do not use it for its large language model, for its writing personally. But that's because Claude is so good. Dad says, the interview is a great idea. I normally start with a transcript. It's just another way to get more information out of yourself. We as humans, we're not very good at starting with a blank page. If you're just given a blank page and a flashing cursor and you have to write a blog article, that's hard. If you're given a set of questions, that's a lot easier to get the information out of your head. The info's in here. It's just how we get it out with less friction. Having an AI saying, here's 5 questions, and then answering with a microphone makes it easier to get that information out. You can also do multiple rounds of questioning. So you get it to ask you the preliminary questions, you answer, and then it has more context. Then you say, ask me some clarifying questions, and it will ask you another 3 or 4 questions. You answer those, then say, ask me some challenging questions, and then deep dive. The more Q&A you go through, the more unique the transcript is going to be, the more unique the blog article is going to be. So that works really well, especially if you don't want to write. Good morning, Ayub. No, I'm still not an AI avatar. One day. From all your AI experience, how can someone start a business around AI? I'm glad you asked. I put together a quiz for this exactly, called the AI Business Quiz, which is discover the perfect AI business opportunity for you. Just doing AI is not a business. Doing AI alongside existing skills in a market that is willing to pay for it, that creates a business. But anyway, I've created a quiz which basically answers that question, because there is no one size fits all answer. And anybody who says, oh, the one thing you should start an AI trading bot or do AI faceless video for YouTube, ignore them. They're just trying to sell you something. What you do will depend on you, your skills, time, whether you want to do this on the side of a 9-to-5 job or you want it to be a replacement. And then you're going to apply AI on top of that foundation. I built this quiz. If you go to AI with Kyle down the bottom, AI business quiz, there's a bunch of different tools in here. This website has a ton of stuff. There's 100 kind of playbooks. These are all guides. So how to build an audience, how to launch an app, marketing foundations, all written by hand. So I wrote about 400,000 words, 500,000 words over the last couple of years on how to use AI to start and grow businesses. So that's all available on AI with Kyle. So go and check that out and start with that start with that quiz. That's going to be a good place to go. Also, if you go to AI with Kyle/welcome, this is where I've put together a bunch of kind of basic resources so you can work out your level of AI. I've broken it down to 8 levels. You do not need to go all the way to level 8. You do not need to learn machine learning, get a PhD and go into research. That is, for most people, not required. So this is about working out where you are right now and where you should be aiming at. And there's a lot of information here and about how to go from level to level. There's also a learning guide, which is a compilation of the best YouTube videos, the best free guides, courses from deeplearning.ai, which again are free, etc., etc. The people you should be following if you want to get signal versus noid, that's all in there. That's aiwithkyle.com/welcome. Thank you for asking that question. Theodore's going to get blocked. This is interesting. On TikTok Live, people keep saying, I'll give you money if you message me. If somebody tells you they'll give you free money, if you DM them, they're not going to give you free money. Deloitte. Poor Deloitte. No, it's their own bloody fault. So Deloitte have been caught again. I did it again with AI. So a couple of months ago, we found out Deloitte sent a research report to the Australian government, charged them 440,000 Australian dollars, and it was full of AI errors. It had hallucinations. It had made up footnotes. And the Australian government, or somebody who was investigating this report, checking it out, went to go and contact the people who were cited in these footnotes, because apparently there's an academic genius who was right there in Australia, the University of New South Wales. So they're like, oh, I'm going to contact them for comment. It did not exist. Deloitte had created a report using AI, we don't know which one, and not fact-checked it. They had to refund a portion of the report to the Australian government. More importantly, they look like idiots. Deloitte has allegedly cited AI-generated research in $1 million report for a Canadian provincial government. They're just hitting every country. So a Canadian government commissioned Deloitte healthcare report that cost one province nearly $1.6 million contains potentially AI-generated errors, marking the second country this year to allege the consulting firm's shortcomings. I would be swearing a lot more at Deloitte if I'd just given them $1.6 million and they filled it with AI errors. The errors, found in an investigation published Saturday by The Independent, a progressive Canadian news outlet covering Newfoundland and Labrador, appears in a 526-page report disseminated by its government in May. The Deloitte report contained false citations. This is the new one, pulled from made-up academic papers, so it's exactly the same problem as in Australia, to draw conclusions for cost-effective analyses, and cited real researchers on papers they hadn't worked on. It included fictional papers co-authored by researchers who said they had never worked together. Deloitte in Australia, when this happened, said, yeah, these are AI errors. Sorry, we messed up. However, the main findings of the report are absolutely fine, and we still stand by them. They've done exactly the same thing. Deloitte Canada firmly stands behind the recommendations in our report. Deloitte's Canada spokesman told Fortune, we're revising the report to make a small number of citation corrections, which do not impact the findings. AI was not used to write the report. It was selectively used to support a small number of research citations. So they've been caught again. Same company selling to a government, this time $1.5 million paper, got caught, said, we still stand behind the recommendations of the report. We only used AI on the bits that you found and we didn't use it anywhere else. Yeah, nonsense. I'm not going to get invited to any Deloitte parties, I think. I was talking about this at a workshop the other day and I had to ask. I was talking about the Australian one and I had to ask, does anyone work at Deloitte? I'm about to dunk on them. So the fact that they have done it again is absolutely, it's gross. Because they are charging $1.6 million to a province in Canada. So this is taxpayers' money. This is taxpayers' money going to Deloitte. They're running AI to generate this report, not checking it, despite having many highly paid consultants, and then pushing it out the door. When they get caught, they say, it's still fine. And those are the only times we used AI, happen to be the bits that you caught. Nonsense. I bet they generated the whole bloody thing with artificial intelligence, and that now they're being caught. So the bigger problem here is not just Deloitte. Look, this is the second time this year. They are undercutting the whole consulting industry. If I worked at McKinsey or one of Deloitte's competitors, I would not be chuckling at this, thinking, look at those idiots at Deloitte. I would be thinking, this is a problem, because this is going to erode our customers' trust, because they are going to be asking, quite rightly, wait, why am I paying you $1 million to put together this report when You were just getting a bunch of highly paid people in suits to run this through artificial intelligence and then putting it together in a lovely looking slide deck for me. Why am I paying you $1 million? If you're just going to use AI, should we just use AI to get advisory help? I wouldn't be surprised if we see a shift towards getting assistance from AI directly. There will be startups who will provide this, who will come in and eat the lunch of companies like Deloitte because they will be able to do this at a fraction of the price. Already, a lot of the consultancy and advisory companies are pivoting into AI, McKinsey in particular, because I think they realize that their time is up, and charging a huge amount of money for synthesized reports based on, their pre-formatted deck is not going to run anymore. They're running out of time and they need to pivot into AI ASAP. IBM, for example, they have a huge consulting arm and they're moving into implementation for people. So helping people to not just get the information and the advice, but implement it, because the moat for consultation is gone. Deloitte getting caught twice in a year is just going to erode that trust so fast and move companies to just getting this advice themselves from artificial intelligence. Now, there is an element of cover your ass insurance, CYA insurance, where you use an expensive consultant so that you, as the vice president or whatever as a company, you cover yourself. Whether that's enough to support a multi-billion-dollar industry, I do not think so. So this should be a wake-up call for everyone in consultancy. It should be a wake-up call for anyone who hires consultants too, that we are shifting away from this. It's Deloitte again. Deloitte isn't. Oh, it's a private company. Really? Okay. So Chinese parents are finding a new use for AI assistants. They're deploying them as homework monitors. This is using ByteDance's, I'm not sure, Doubao. Chinese parents are finding a new use for AI assistants. They're deploying them as homework monitors. So here's a setup with ByteDance's Doubao AI. Parents start a video call, aim the camera at the kid with the prompt, "Watch my kid." Remind him when he loses focus or his posture slips. It's able to see when the kid, pulls out a phone or puts down his book or wanders off. And then the phone, or the AI assistant in this case, will yell, "Hey, oi, pick up your pen, get back to work." The AI tutor goes to work. Focus on homework. Sit up straight. Your posture is off. No falling asleep at the desk. Sit up and study. Do not lean on your hand. Don't chew your pen. Don't play on the tablet. Keep your eyes further from the book. We can use this for cool things. Imagine a personal PT. If you were doing at-home exercise, push-ups, squats, you could have a PT AI watching you saying, "Give me another 20, or your form is off." We could use an AI as the eyes and ears of anyone who needs to keep on track. Even when it said sit up straight, your posture is off, I found I sat up straight myself just because I read sit up straight, your posture is off. I could have a little camera monitoring posture and saying, "Oi, you're slumping." That'd be a useful product. Like, I can imagine people paying for that. Just a little camera, sits, watches, and keeps an eye on you and tells you if you're slumping, or it helps you keep focus. I think that would be cool. So this is a funny video, but also an awful lot of potential. A lot of startups that could be started off ideas like this. Too many businesses, too many ideas, too many opportunities with artificial intelligence. The question is not building it, because I could build something quickly. The question is how you market it, and distribution, and how you turn it into a business. That's going to become the increasingly more important task. So I'm going to finish up. As always, make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. The newsletter contains a summary of everything that we've covered. Today, I'm going to include all of the reports, so I will give you the direct links as well, so you don't have to go rummaging around trying to find the Iceberg Index report. I'll host it on my website and give you a link, no email capture. On the website, check out aiwithkyle.com/welcome. There's a whole bunch of kind of introductory resources in there, including a tool which will help you work out what AI business you should start. It's a big question. It's a question I get asked all the time. So I built a tool to help you work that out. And an AI learning guide of top resources and the levels of AI. I have also, that's up until last night building this, I've built a new prompts database. I have 812 prompts that you can split them up. I need to create launch messages for communities. I need a waitlist system for my existing landing page. All my prompts are now available. So you can copy them and you can use them for business usages. And each of them, I find prompt databases are not very helpful generally because they are just, there's no context to them. It's just a prompt. That might be useful. What's different here is you can get into the playbook that uses that prompt. You can see it in context. This is a whole playbook about how to set up landing pages. It includes the prompts. So it's a bit more useful than just a random database of prompts. But that is available on the website as well. This is something I'm still building, so I will release it properly over the next few days. Make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter for that. Also, YouTube, working my way towards 10,000 subscribers. I'll stop trying to get to 10,000 subscribers once I get to 10,000 subscribers. We are at 9,764, so close. If you can subscribe on YouTube, that would be awesome as well. So newsletter, YouTube. I will not be back tomorrow because it is the weekend. I will be back. I wish you all a fantastic and I'll see you. Cheers, guys.